Wonder how long they would stand if we didn't say. I notice they start sitting down a little bit at a time. A couple of announcements that we didn't have in our announcements this morning. The teen party is going to be Thursday the 19th here at the building, 7 to 9. Oh, it's your place, at Reggie's place.
Yes.
Okay, at Reggie's place, Thursday, December the 19th, from 7 to 9.
7 to 10 p.m.
7 to 10 p.m. Yeah, all right. Very good. Also, as you know, we've had a board election, and I wanted to make this announcement myself. I want to tell you that we had 3 very fine men up for the board, and the vote was very close, very close. And what it tells me is that all 3 of these men are highly respected by this congregation. And I'm just glad that we've got men that can serve in this way. But the vote was that Raul and Ken will continue on the board. So, amen. Going to be looking at a passage in Luke chapter 10 here this morning.
Come on, Greg.
You know, before Thanksgiving, I preached a lesson where I used the illustration of a roller coaster. And everybody that's ever ridden a roller coaster, you know that first hill, it goes click, 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 and then it gets to the top, and it just seems like it pauses there. And then it's off to the races. It drops off that first hill into turns, and you either enjoy it or it's terrifying. I've heard people ride roller coasters, they get off, and I'll never do that again. And you know, to me, this is like, Christmas is like this. This is, we got 17 more days until Christmas Day. 17. You're already tightening up, aren't you? But 17 more days, and it's filled with a lot of different things. And what I found through the years is that there's 2 sides to Christmas. There's the side that's beautiful and uplifting, and you love it, and it's the height of the year. And the other side is, it's one of the most stressful times of the year. In my experience over 45 years in the church, more people fall away during the holidays. More people have marriage problems during the holidays. More people have stresses during the holidays than the other part of the season. So it works both ways. And I'm going to talk about the darker side here just a little bit here this morning. And hopefully it'll help if it applies to anybody. I hope it doesn't apply to anybody. I hope this is an irrelevant sermon, but it probably won't be. But here are some of the roller coaster hills and curves of Christmas. I'm just going to go down through some of the things that we have to give our attention to during Christmas time. Getting to the necessary holiday parties. And maybe you have 2 parties going at the same time, and you want to go to both of them, but you have to choose which one you're going to go to. Putting up, buying a tree, or putting up the tree. Putting up decorations. Somebody breaks the heirloom tree bulb. Planning and cooking meals. Gift shopping. Wrapping the gifts. Making enough cookies and breads to give away. Pulling things out of storage to put up on the wall and to decorate the yard. Fighting the traffic. Money. Having enough money to buy gifts. Fearing going into additional debt. If married, figuring out when to celebrate at which parent's house without offending the other one. All the stores are out of the gift you're looking for. And then 3 frightening words. Some assembly required. I don't fear that. I just have extra bolts left over. Having the right clothes for social occasions. Gaining weight. Christmas programs for the kids at school and at church. Untangling the strands of lights. Bulbs that burn out. Unusable strings of light that you have to run and get some more. Sending out Christmas cards, the Christmas picture for some to be made. Cleaning the house. Forgetting someone for whom you should have purchased a gift. Feeling the pressure to make a memory. Knowing that the year is coming to a close and you didn't accomplish what you intended to. Facing relatives you don't get along with. Oh, that one hit. All of your work is due on a rapidly approaching December 25th deadline. Knowing that maybe you'll spend Christmas alone. 3 often overlooked words. Batteries not included. Being a part of a family that celebrates separately because of a divorce. Christmas meal. Shopping. Who's going to bring what? Request and so on. Health issues during Christmas. Arranging travel schedules. Missing loved ones who have passed away. Paying off credit cards. Winding through the crowded stores, finding out you and the family have different expectations, and suddenly there's frustration and anger and tears. Members of your family who find where you hid their presents. Taking the tree decorations down and cleaning up and packing up and all of that. And that's just some of it, isn't it? Yeah, there's more to it. It's a time that sometimes physical things come on. You don't get enough sleep. Headaches, stomach upset, indigestion, anger and irritability, lashing out, sickness, wake up feeling tired, depression, disappointment, sadness. And all of those things add up to stress. And stress leads to a lot of things, including it leads to sinful attitudes and sinful behaviors sometimes. I want to talk about that for just a moment. And the question is, can stress be avoided? Ha ha. Kindred says, Kyriad says, no. I agree with her. There may be some human beings on the face of the planet that can go through a holiday with everything is stress-free. I've never met that person. There's always going to be some stress. The question is, how can we reduce the stress in our lives, and especially during the holidays? I'd like for you to turn over to Luke chapter 10, a well-known story. We've heard it many times, but I think it suggests some things that can help us to deal with stress. And this is a little tiny story that happened in the life of Jesus. And yet I think it's very instructive. Look at verse 38. Luke chapter 10, verse 38. It says, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister's left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you're worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Stress. That's what Martha was feeling. And here's the question I want to pose for us this morning and talk a little bit about. What would have made that a different situation? What would have made that a great time with Jesus? And I think the things that were suggested by that, the answer to that question, will help us with holiday issues as well, and helping us to deal with stress. The first thing I would ask everybody to examine themselves about is temperament. You know, Martha and Mary had a different temperament about them. I would describe Martha as someone that was anxious and little things bothered her and she got upset easily, and that's just who she was. Mary I would describe as la 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 la. You know. And there are people that live in the moment. That it doesn't seem to bother them that things are not being done in a certain way. And sometimes the different temperaments is what creates problems in our homes and in our interactions with one another? What kind of temperament do you have? How are you going into the holidays? In our family, our extended family, we have some in our family that are the la 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 la. And we have some in our family that are, it's got to be done right, it's got to be, everything's got to be so-so. And then when you get those two together, it's a perfect storm. If there isn't some talking about it beforehand. And one of the questions, I had a meeting with a group of elders in Boston one time, and I posed this question for the group. I said, I'd like for everybody to answer this question regarding each of us. What's it like working with me? And we went around and everybody, what's it like working with Greg? What's it like working with Jack? And everybody went around. It was one of the most helpful things in our eldership we ever did as far as working together, because we were able to express, you know, brother, you have a hard time making decisions, and it's frustrating when you make a decision and then you change your mind at the last moment. And somebody else, well, you make decisions very quickly. And it went around like that, and you might think, well, this is going to cause a lot of problems. But what it did is it helped each one of us to see how we were in our interactions with other people. How are you? What's it like working with you during the holidays? What's it like? How do you impact other people, the people around you? That's a very important question to answer. One of the things that Martha could have done is to done more discussing of expectations and planning before Jesus ever came. I can imagine that this is what happened. I can imagine that Martha and Mary had a brief discussion and said, you know what, let's have Jesus over for a meal. And, you know, we never get to talk to him. He's in crowds all the time. Let's just have him in for a meal. And maybe that was all that was said. Instead of doing some more, what are the expectations for this time together? What are some of the planning that we want to do? Martha could have said, Mary, here's what I think would be good. I think it would be good for us to cook the meal together, to prepare things, and have it ready when the Lord comes. Wouldn't that have created a lot better situation than waiting until something was going wrong and then trying to deal with it? Planning ahead, establishing expectations. You know, I find that that's where a lot of the tension comes in. People have different expectations about things. Maybe different expectations about the Christmas lunch or Christmas Day or the presents or any number of things that I looked at here. And to talk about it beforehand. The more we can plan, the more we can be on the same page, the less stress there will be. But it's very common for people not to express their expectations and not to plan. And so things happen and things get out of hand. The other thing is to establish the most important priorities. What's the most important thing that we're trying to accomplish to make a memory during Christmas? For Martha, the most important thing was that meal. That meal had to be right. It had to be perfect. And that's where she put her attention. Mary, on the other hand, put her attention on, I want the opportunity to talk with Jesus one-on-one and have a conversation with him. That's what's important to me. And so we have to, if we want to make Christmas a memory, we've got to decide what is our priority. What's the most important thing? And before we get all caught up in all the different things and distractions that go on, determine what do we want to accomplish in this? What kind of memory do we want to have? And you know, if you look back at Martha and Mary, and what would you remember a year later? Would you remember that was some kind of meal? Or would you remember the words that Jesus spoke and your interaction with him and how he helped you? And all that just to say, we've got to decide, well, what's important? What's important with the kids? What's important with the wife and with the husband, with our friends, with our family? What's important? What do we want to accomplish? And the third thing is keeping our cool when things go out of control. I saw President Obama interviewed, and I'm going to have to paraphrase what he said, but he said, Bob Gates, who was the Secretary of Defense, when he first became president, he asked him, he said, Bob, what advice would you give me? And said that Bob Gates said, Mr. President, you have a lot of people working for you, and I guarantee you at any one time somebody is really messing up. And you know, that's true. When you have, there's going to be mess ups. And there's going to be things that come up that you didn't expect, that you didn't want. And how we respond to those things is going to make all the difference in the world. Now, go back and think about what Martha did. Martha's in the kitchen, and she's trying to cook several things at the same time. Maybe something's burning, and she's trying to get it all together, and she really wants to do a great job with it. And Mary's in there talking and not helping her one bit. And I can just imagine she's getting a little bit more angry and a little bit more frustrated and a little bit more upset. And then pretty soon she marches into the living room and she shouts out, Lord, don't you care what's going on? That my sister's not helping me? Tell her to get in here and help me. And what did that do to the atmosphere? Imagine how Mary must have felt to be addressed that way in front of Jesus, in front of anybody. Imagine what Martha was feeling. Imagine what Jesus was feeling, or a guest would feel, where there's tension and lashing out and anger. And those things can happen during the holidays that quick if we're not careful. And keeping our cool. If Mary had just kept her cool. Imagine if Mary had just stepped into the living room and said, hey Mary, would you come in here and help me? I wonder if she wouldn't have just got up and gone in and helped her. But instead, passive aggressive, she just let it build and build and build, and then she blew. We want to keep the right atmosphere in our home. We've got to keep our cool when things don't go the way we'd like for them to go. And inevitably, some of that's going to happen. Somebody's going to say something, do something, not do something, not be responsible with this or whatever. And we can lash out and the whole atmosphere changes. Or we can keep our cool and deal with it in a righteous way. And the fourth thing I would say is during the holidays, and of course at any time, but during the holidays especially, be righteous. Start the day with the right attitude. And a good way to start the day, every day, is with a great quiet time. And ask God, help me. This is going to be a trying day, Lord, and I've got a lot of things going on, and I know how I am. Please help me get through it and do the right thing and be righteous. And keep Jesus at the center of our lives. Like I said, during the holidays, it's not uncommon for people to become unrighteous and just kind of forget their spiritual bearings. Yeah. And that's the very time when we ought to have our spiritual bearings. For the sake of ourselves, for the sake of the influence upon our extended family, we want them to see what it means to be a Christian. Yeah. And so in conclusion, Martha's meal and open home was filled with frustration and upset and tension, and probably took some of the enjoyment out of it. But it could have been different if she had planned better, if they had established common expectations and communicated those expectations. They had a clear picture of what was most important, and they were able to keep their cool and be righteous when things didn't go the way they would like them to. Christmas is a time to make a memory, a great memory. But it takes effort. It takes prayerful, righteous effort to do that. But that's what you want your children to remember. When they leave home and they remember back and look back over the days, they remember that Christmas when such and such. That Christmas instead of looking back and saying, boy, that was a rocky Christmas. Mom and Dad had it out. Aunt so-and-so didn't like Grandma so-and-so, and boy, that was quite a scene. No, we want to make a great memory. And may God help us do that very thing. Amen.